Men ought to live. Men ought to love. Men ought to lead. Men join the discussion every Saturday on Isaac 98.1 FM. Men, it's your time to talk on Men Talk. Men Talk. Men Talk, now every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m.
Usually we have a guest in studio. Well, we do have a guest today, but he's not in studio. And this gentleman was a man who started, or I should say restarted, he will tell us, International Men's Day. He is a Trinidadian, he's a doctor, and he is the one who's responsible for this thing being celebrated by, I believe, over 80 countries in the worldwide. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh, and I have him on the line. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Professor Richards, and good evening to your listeners.
Welcome to Men Talk. Welcome to Isaac 90.1 FM. It's good to have you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Introduce yourself to our listening audience this evening.
I am a lecturer in the history department at UWI St. Augustine, and I'm a former primary school, secondary school teacher. I'm a Presbyterian by faith, and I am married and father of one daughter.
Wonderful. Okay, so you are the person who is credited as being responsible for this celebration that we have every year on November 19th. So
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
For two major reasons. The first reason, and you and some of your listeners might remember, that fateful evening on the 19th of November 1989 when the strike squad, our football team, lost at National Stadium 1-0 to the United States. But I felt there was a need to recapture that moment, not because of the loss, but because of the unity that it generated and the harmony throughout the country. We crossed gender, class, ethnic, racial, religious, geographical barriers. We were all one. There was this sea of red. And that harmony and that solidarity and that unity, where we had put aside political differences and religious differences, I felt we needed to remember that day. So that's one of the major reasons. 19th of November was a day when it created unprecedented unity in Trinidad and Tobago. And secondly, it's my dad's birthday. And I felt that he was a role model and an important figure in the community and the family. So I felt that having the day here, we will also see our fathers throughout the country and also positive male role models like uncles or stepfathers, cousins, as also this role model that we need, because the family unit is so very important.
Now, was it difficult to get acceptance, especially internationally, for a day like this? Because we had Mother's Day and the other days that we recognize. Was it difficult to get buy-in for this celebration of this day?
Initially, it was, because people were saying that we have 364 days of the year belonging to men, live in a male-dominated world. They were saying that there's nothing to celebrate about men. So there was a lot of negative vibes. Some of the men's groups from the developed nations, didn't really take me on, because they felt that, it wasn't a novel idea. But I started off on the ground, a grassroots campaign that, took off. So I was very fortunate that I had the patience and I stuck with it. And I kept on writing the heads of governments, the NGOs around the world, and it paid off.
Wonderful. So now we celebrate. And how long ago was that we started celebrating International Men's Day?
This year is the 20th anniversary, so it's been 1999.
Wonderful. So that's 10 years after 1989.
Correct. When I was trying to find our history, something recent that struck a chord, and I realized that this event in 1989 is something that stood out.
But do you think that people want to remember November 19, 1989, having been such a sad day for us all? Yes, it united the nation, but it was a sad day for everybody. You know, people who didn't even know anything about football and probably never went to a match, probably don't even know the rules of the game. But everyone was affected by it, and we were all the entire nation was sad. And I find it interesting that that's a day that you would have chosen. Yeah, granted that it was your dad's birthday, but that day, that particular day, it was a sad day for us all.
It was, and I think that without the Danish sadness, I also saw the medium of a sport being able to unite us, just as you and your listeners would know how Brian Lara did it with cricket, or when we see Atto Boldon won a medal, or we heard that Walcott won the gold medal, with the javelin. So that sport generates unity, it generates nationalism, patriotism, and this is what I had hoped, to also remember about the day. Not so much the loss, but the importance of sport and the importance of, heroes.
Now, Dr. Tilak Singh, since that day, what do you think has been accomplished in terms of the celebration of the day? Because I know there are various events that take place around the world, but as you look back, or as you look back over the last 20 years, what are the positives that you can take out of the fact that we celebrate that day?
I think some of the positives that I can take out, and others, is that men's issues came to the forefront. And when I mean men's issues, sometimes they would have men who were depressed, suicidal, suffering from mental health issues like maybe being bipolar or schizophrenia. And they were afraid to speak out because of the fear of being victimized or stereotyped, stigmatized. And this day made a lot of men realize that they are human, they are not invincible, they are vulnerable. So it was a day, that a lot of men have been coming out with issues, bringing their testimony, bringing their stories, that they have problems. So I think it was able to highlight some of the discrimination that men face. It added that human touch to men, to fathers, to uncles, to brothers, that often we tend to overlook. We just see them as the breadwinner, we see them as the head of the household, but I think that the day focuses on real issues affecting them.
Yeah. The time is 7:16. Folks, you're listening to Men Talk here on Isaac 98.1 FM. The Promise. We are speaking with Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh, the person who is credited as having started International Men's Day. It started right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Tilak Singh is a Trinidadian. As you can tell by his accent, he's a Trini. And I trust Trini to the bone. And so we're chatting with him today. Now, Doc, you talked about some of the issues that men face that are highlighted because of International Men's Day.
Correct.
But it seems as though we are still struggling in terms of maybe the general public accepting the fact that men do have issues, men have challenges. I don't know if it's because of men. We ourselves always try to portray the fact that we're strong, that we're invincible. Or is it that, society just says, look, you guys can take care of yourself. Let's talk about the woman. Let's deal with the woman because they're the weaker sex. So let's focus on them. What has happened since that? Did you really see men, the focus really being on men and seeing men as we are?
I think that it hasn't been 100% turnaround. It hasn't been, something that I could show you with statistics, but I've been seeing newspaper articles from around the world. I've been getting a feedback on social media and emails, and I'm starting to realize that our positive male role models have been invisible. They have been invisible. We are not seeing these positive role models, and they are now starting to be highlighted on November the 19th. I am seeing more positive contributions by men being highlighted. And when I mean positive contributions, I'm not meaning the men in the public eye like the police or the fire services, but I'm meaning men who might be single fathers, taking care of their children, men who might be recovering addicts, trying to, get back into society. So I've been seeing some positive signs that I think that there is some hope. There is certainly a turnaround.
But in fact, let me ask: are there any safe places, safe spaces for men? A place that men can go to if we have issues, if we have problems? Because we know women, there are places for women that women can go, rape crisis center and all these things. What about men? Where do we go? What does a man do if he has an issue?
Well, you see, Professor, that is the frightening reality and the sad reality in that when men have problems, we go to the rum shop. Mm-hmm. We go to the bar and talk about it. Mm-hmm. That is where we get our so-called counseling, counseling inverted marks.
Yeah.
And we don't have that safe space like we would have if we ask the public what you consider a shelter or a home for the abused. They think about girls or women suffering from domestic violence. Mm-hmm. But we never see a shelter for men. And that is very unfortunate, and even boys who are facing bullying at secondary schools. Some schools don't even have counselors or psychologists. So that this space that we talk about, that men need, it is non-existent in many communities. And this is why, Professor and your listeners, we have such a high murder rate that has crossed 500.
Yes, that is so sad. That is so sad. I was reading about that this morning. What can we do? What do we do at this particular point, Dr. Tilak Singh? Because the sad reality, as you said, is that there aren't these places for men. Do you, in fact, let me ask it this way. Do you see, looking in the future, seeing, the way things are moving, do you see us coming to that place where we will have those safe spaces for men, where we can have a place that a man could pick up a phone and call and say, hey, listen, I got an issue, I got a problem? Do you see, are you hopeful that something like that can happen in Trinidad and Tobago?
I am hopeful, and I'm praying that it happens sooner than later, because I know that there are men out there who cannot handle a breakup, a relationship that goes sour. There are men out there who might have a nervous breakdown, but they are afraid to go to a mental institution. Sometimes they might be living in a rural community. They might be living in Tobago, and they don't have access to these social services. So what I would like, and what I'm praying about, is that either this government or future government would use our valuable resources. We had so much money coming in from oil and natural gas, and that we would create centers. We would create these hotlines where a man could go in anonymously without providing ID and seek attention.
Someone says, a whole generation worked to empower women, then forgot to teach men how to live with empowered women. And the person said Stoops. I'll read it again. A whole generation worked to empower women, then forget to teach men how to live with empowered women. Do you think that's a fact, that we as men don't know how to live with an empowered woman? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I just got it today, and I thought this was pretty interesting. So let me get your thoughts on it.
I fully agree that this is where we have antagonistic and hostile gender relations, where we have the woman who is very educated, she she's earning a greater income, and she has eclipsed the man as the breadwinner in the family. And the man, it could be the boyfriend or the husband, he will feel emasculated. His ego is damaged. His psyche is affected because he no longer controls the money. That economic power is taken away. He's no longer the man in the house, literally. So I think that it is very true what that little quote you got on WhatsApp. It is a reality. Look at our recent scholarship winners. Most of them, the lion's share,
females,
belong to the girls.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the university graduates from our universities and COSTAT and UTT, mostly females. So that it is not something that is theoretical. It is a hard reality that our men and our boys who might have been underachievers, they are now facing a situation where the relationship has tipped in favor of the woman. And governments have been given money, they've been ensuring that this so-called gender equality takes place. But there's now an imbalance. Before it was the men who were in control, women have broken the glass ceiling, the proverbial glass ceiling. And there's now gender inequality with the man being on the receiving end. So that those words, equality and equity, we have not achieved that. It's usually either the man or the woman, being prominent, and that creates a problem.
Yeah. Now, another one of the issues that we face, it has been observed that a lot of men don't get into the teaching profession. And because of that, a lot of our young males are exposed to females, from preschool right up. So, the interactions would be just with females, so that you don't have a male teaching a young man how to be a man, how to be a boy. You have women teaching. So, it's one of the challenges that we have as males. Do you agree with that? And if so, what can we do to encourage the men to be, part of the learning process?
Yeah, Professor, you touched on something that is not limited to Trinidad, but it has regional and global implications in that our education in this country has become feminized, meaning that females have dominated. But 50 years ago or 60 years ago, during colonial times, it wasn't so. The teaching profession was a dignified profession. You respected the teacher or the head teacher or the principal. And now women have entered the profession, and it is so true what you're saying, and this is even more damaging to a young man who lacks a father at home. Maybe his father has died or is in jail or abandoned the family, and he doesn't have that male role model in the classroom. And, that is something where the Ministry of Education has to find creative and innovative ways to attract men, because there are men who are unemployed, men who are underemployed, and they just don't want to go into the teaching. So the Ministry of Education has a task to attract them back into the classroom. But you see, it mentioned something about the preschool, that kindergarten era. And sometimes men might feel teaching children might not be a challenge. It might be seen as effeminate.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes discourages men from getting into that career, that teaching career.
Dr. Tilak Singh, we talked about men not getting into the teaching profession. Someone just sent me a WhatsApp and said we also need more male nurses too, as well. Is it that men see these as soft profession, as feminine profession? Like, for example, we grew up knowing a nurse to be a female, but there are male nurses. Do you think a man feels, feminized if he goes into that profession, for someone to look at him and say nurse? Do you think that is what the problem is? The issue is with men.
I certainly believe so, and I agree with that, because let's say you have a man saying that he likes cooking and he wants to be a cook. Everybody will look at him strange. Even though we have some world-class chefs. If a man could so good, he might not want to go and train with a seamstress. He might feel, sewing is for women. Even a man who might be into the profession and he says a hairdresser, we might look at him a little strange. We rather say he's a barber, so that we have professions that have become gendered. And it is very unfortunate because 75 years ago, 80 years ago, a lot of the top secretaries were men. They were known as clerks, right? But right now, when you hear the word secretary, you think women.
Yeah.
Similarly, when you hear occupations like mason, carpenter, plumber, electrician, you think men. You wouldn't think about a woman being an electrician, So our society, we have tended to pigeonhole certain occupations for men and women, which is very unfortunate because you might have a man who might be talented, as a nurse. He has good people skills, good bedside manners, but because of that stigma, he will want to go maybe into pharmacy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Should we then just perhaps change the name of the profession? So, instead of calling him a nurse, find a male equivalent to it. Maybe that will attract more men. I don't know. I wonder. But we need to find a way to do it, because if we need men in these areas and teaching area in the medical profession, then we need to find a way to attract them. And if it is that because of the stigma, then maybe, as I said, I'm saying it jokingly, but I feel it could be serious. We need to perhaps change the name, and so that people would feel, look, I don't have a problem being called this. Yeah. Right. 7:31, folks. Let me try and see if this can work. We want to open up the lines to you to take your calls. Call us on 628-1981. 628-1981. Dr. Tilak Singh, if we get cut off, I'm going to, reconnect with you, because this is the first time we're doing this. 628-1981. And please continue to send us your text messages at 275-1981. 275-1981. But the number you're calling on, and this is for men only. Men, you can call us. Ladies, you can WhatsApp us. Men, call us at 628-1981. And ladies, you can WhatsApp us at 275-1981. We're talking to Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh, the man who started International Men's Day. And ladies, we celebrate a day too. Yeah, not just, we have Women's Day and we have Mother's Day and we have all these female and dominated days and situations and institutions that women can go to, but hardly any for the men. So that's what we are talking about now. So while we await your call, let me just ask Dr. Tilak Singh some more questions. One, Dr. Tilak Singh, a couple of weeks ago, for the past couple of weeks, we have been talking about mentoring.
Correct.
And, how important is that? How do you see that? What's the importance of it?
Mentoring is so critical and valuable for our society, in that often we don't have positive male role models. Our young men, our boys, are not being properly socialized. They are having problems to assimilate into new jobs, into new cultures, into their communities. And that mentoring, it helps. It doesn't replace the family unit, but it will help provide that young man with some hope, some guidance. Just as Christ had a mentor, and just as Christ was a mentor, we need mentors in our life.
One of the challenges, Dr. Tilak Singh, is that, when we were growing up, there was this saying that it takes a whole village to raise a child. Yeah, so that, basically anybody from the village can mentor you and can talk to you. But we live in a different era, almost a different world almost, where you talk to a young person and you could lose your life.
Correct.
Literally. You can't correct young people anymore the way we were corrected when we were growing up. So much so that, even teachers have issues. You discipline a child in school, you talk to a child too hard, or, you raise your voice and they bring in their father to school, or bring in somebody, who would come and literally, as we say in Trinidad, cuss you out, or threaten you, or want to hurt you. So that's one of the challenges that we have in terms of mentoring. So how do we deal with situations like that? Because the village doesn't seem to want to raise the child anymore, or the village wants to raise the child but is unable to because of the society that we live in now.
Yeah. I think it is very unfortunate that we have allowed the child to rule the village. And the child now, the villagers fear the child, right?
Yeah.
And we now have a generation, some might call them Generation X or the millennial generation. They are growing up rude, disrespectful. They often lack moral and ethical values. The religion for them is irrelevant or it's marginalized. And I think that mentoring should not just be done within the secular world, but it also has to have a religious and a spiritual connection. We have to allow this generation to know that there's a God and they need to fear that God. There is a generation growing up here that doesn't look good for our future and the world's future. And we're not just seeing it with the violence, but even with the way they treat the environment, so that it is a generation that seems careless. They are carefree and careless, and it is frightening.
Do you believe, as some people do, that the fact that we corporal punishment was taken away from the schools has contributed to delinquency and to what you just spoke of concerning the children, where they no longer fear the adults fear them? Are you one who would support the return of corporal punishment in school?
Well, Professor, you and your listeners would know, spare the rod and spoil the child. The book of Proverbs talks about it constantly, the need for discipline, the need for respect, and guidance is so important, so that corporal punishment is supposed, as all things in life, are supposed to have limits and boundaries. You're not going to beat a child until that child is bruised or bleeding, but you are going to try to discipline that child within certain limits and boundaries. When we were growing up, including you and some of your listeners, we got licks with belts and rulers, you got slaps and things. And we were pressured. I had something called the common entrance exam, right? And we were forced, to learn our work. And when we took away that corporal punishment, and that punishment from the school, I think what we did is that we opened the floodgate, and we created a generation that we cannot control. Now, a lot of times, you would hear the sociologists and the psychologists arguing that do not beat a child, it will create psychological, it will be very traumatic for the child, and this will damage the child. But I feel that we have done an injustice to our generation by allowing the teachers not to, guide that child. I don't want to say beat, but the teachers, and I'm saying this frankly, they don't use corporal punishment, but sometimes they insult the students. So there's that verbal and emotional abuse still occurring in the classroom. And I think we need to understand that without lifting a hand or without using any belt or ruler, that teacher could also be doing damage. So we have to be mindful of that if a child is not disciplined at home and not disciplined in the school, how could we expect our nation to be productive and to be, have a good work ethic?
7:38, folks. You're listening to Men Talk on Isaac 90.1 FM. The Promise. I am Professor, and not in studio, on the line with me, Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh. And someone says, I believe, for example, the female nurse can care for both male and female patients, while the male nurse would not be expected to care for a female patient in many ways. That's in response to male getting into certain profession. Someone says we need Dr. Eric Williams fathering for this nation. Well, I'm not sure what Dr. Eric Williams fathering is, but this is the thought of one person. Give us a call at 628-1981, 628-1981, or send us a WhatsApp message at 275-1981, 275-1981. We're chatting with Dr. Jerome Tuluksing. Give me a call. I want to see if this will work. Let's see. There's a call coming in. Let's try it and see. Hello, good evening. You're on the air. Okay, let's try it again. Hello? No, it doesn't seem to be working. Hello? Is anyone there? Well, somebody's there. You hearing me? Okay. All right. That doesn't seem to be working. Dr. Tuluksing, you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you're still here. Okay, try again, folks. Try again to call 628-1981. Let's see if we can get the lines to work. 628-1981. And if not, then, just send us a brief WhatsApp message. Or if you're male, you could probably send us a voice note. Yeah, so let's try again. Hello, good evening. Hello. Okay, I'm hearing something. Hello. All right, okay. Let's put that aside. Okay, so if you're male, you could probably send us a voice note. You make your comment at 275-1981, 275-1981. Excuse me. Yes, if you're male, send us a voice note. If you're female, send us a text message. Let's try it one last time. We have a call on it. Let's try it one last time. Hello, good evening. You're on the air. Hello? Hello? All right. So sorry, folks. It doesn't seem to be, the two-line setup doesn't seem to be working. We'll have to sort that out for another time. But I am saying that if you want to send us a voice note, you send us a voice note at 275-1981, 275-1981. Send us a voice message. Ladies, you can send us a text message and we'll be sure to read it. So, Dr. Tuluksing, you're still here, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, so we talk about men. So let's see. Going forward, what can we do? What is being done right now? I know there are several male groups that are in existence. I spent some time with one of the male groups just recently, 2 Sundays ago, where we got together, the Millennium Knights. That's a group down in Point Fortin, where we came together. And we talked and we shared, and we had a really wonderful time. I also spent some time with another group. The Opening Lotus organized another men's retreat, and I was up in St. Joseph. We went up in the mountains and we had a great time. What other groups are there? I don't know of all of them, but what are the groups that are really assisting men and advocating for men? Do you know any? Can you highlight any groups at all for us?
There are a few groups. They have the Men Against Violence Against Women.
Right. Yes.
The Donald Berman.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the public would know about the YMCA in Port of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we have those two groups, and we also have Carryman, which has branches in the other Caribbean islands.
Carryman? Carryman. Caribbean. Oh, okay, yes.
Right, Carryman. I think Dr. Peter Weller is.
Oh, yes, right.
Right,
yes.
And I came across 2 weeks ago from International Men's Day a young man known as Kevin Liverpool with Fatherhood Resource Center.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so he is also has been working with young men and fathers. So these are some of the groups existing, but unfortunately, apart from YMCA, these groups lack government funding.
Yeah, that was my next question. Government response to all of this. Yeah.
Because that Millennium Night, I think it's a bike group.
Yes, yes.
and they're doing some wonderful work, but they are not given the official support. And what we need to have is a directory of all the men's groups, the men's resources, and we need to have funding. And if the government cannot help us, we need to go to the IDB or the World Bank, and we need to ask them urgently for funding, because our men are in crisis, our boys are in crisis, our nation is in crisis, and we need to help those who are doing good work on the ground, community-based groups and NGOs.
Yeah. But it would mean coming together as a single unit if you have to make representation to, the IDB or whoever else for funding.
Correct.
Yeah. So is there any move to do that, to bring unity among the groups?
Well, I have been trying with International Men's Day, to get the men's voices together during that month in November, and it has been working, but it's just an individual effort, just me and a few people, and it's just for a few days around International Men's Day. We need something that is consistent throughout the year. It's so difficult because, again, we lack resources for communication. You don't have a secretariat, So we need support, but there are attempts for men to speak with one voice.
Wonderful. 7:45 is the time. We only have a few more minutes left, folks. Send us your text messages, your WhatsApp messages, I should say, ladies. Send us your WhatsApp. Ladies are sending us their photos. We want the photos. We want some WhatsApp messages from you. Your questions, your comments. We have Dr. Tilak Singh on the line. Men, I know a couple of you have been trying to call us, but the line, we only have one line that's working or that can work at a time. So send us a voice note, men, at 275-1981. 275-1981. That's the number that you send us your text message or your WhatsApp message. Man, you can also text us if some of you are phone shy and you don't like your voice heard or you don't want your voice recognized. No problem with that. Send us a text message to that number, 275-1981. Won't be able to take any voice calls today because Dr. Tilak Singh is on the line, the only line that is working in terms of taking calls right now. So we await your call as we continue to chat with Dr. Tilak Singh. Now, Doc, if men listening to us here tonight, they want to, you say, you're carrying this burden on your shoulder, and a man says, look, I want to help. I want to be a part of this. I want to do something. What can they do? How can they get in contact with you, or who do they get in contact with?
They could WhatsApp me at 283-4587, 283-4587. They could send me a text or WhatsApp and tell me they want to assist, and I could invite them to our next meeting we have here. I could find out, what area, what community. Maybe they might have a skill to share. They might be a consultant, and they want to offer free advice. There might be a healthcare practitioner who says, I want to offer for one day free blood sugar testing, or I want to assist with a financial case that you might bring up with me, so that we have men out there who are in dire straits and they're looking for mentors, they're looking for help, they're looking for a shoulder to turn to. So I would be glad to put them onto somebody. We also have the group, as you would know, the Single Fathers Association.
Yeah.
They've been doing a lot of good work on the ground too.
Yeah, correct. Rondell Fields, yes.
Yes, Rondell.
Yeah.
Right. And we also have the police youth clubs there. Don't dismiss them. They're playing a very important role too. Helping the communities.
Wonderful. So, man, you're hearing, you can be a part, you can play your part, you can support, you can, also add your voice to what is happening. Because I think, there's strength in numbers. When there are a lot of people who are advocating and men coming together, then, you get recognition. People begin to say, people say, well, look, there are lots of them. Let's pay some attention to them. And that's what we want. That's what we want to happen. Okay. So, folks, Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh, and, let me just go back to what we started with, International Men's Day. who comes up with the theme every year and what has to be done? Is it individual countries, or is there a particular committee that does that? How does that work?
I created an email group with coordinators from United States, Canada, Africa, India, Pakistan. So we have about 10 coordinators, and we also ask other persons to suggest themes or topics for every year. And then whoever supports it, the most votes, we decide on a theme. But I also allow countries and allow organizations and groups to also develop any other theme that they might find relevant to their need. So that this year, the theme focused on gender equality. But some countries wanted to look at positive role models. Some cities said they want to look at men make a difference. So that they came up with similar themes, but very importantly, it was positive themes and topics.
Yeah. But again, I want to go back again to something that we mentioned before concerning recognition for men at this particular, at this time. Do you think that we recognize men enough? I know a lot has been done since the celebration of International Men's Day, but a lot of it seemed to be centered around that time and that month. What about the rest of the year? What are we doing? What can we do to really recognize men? Because there are a lot of good men. There are a lot of good fathers. There are a lot of good husbands. You hear a lot about the negatives. The 500 over 500 murders in Trinidad and Tobago, most committed by men. I'm sure. Right. So that is highlighted, but you hardly find the good being highlighted. I don't know if that's indictment against our society, because, and I'll tell you this, sometimes when someone does something, as far as I'm concerned, and folks don't get me wrong, should be run-of-the-mill and normal, we look at, for example, we had a picture of a policeman carrying a gentleman to vote during the voting, and while that is commendable, and I commend him for it, and that's fantastic, but that should be a normal. We should not be so wowed over something like that. But someone does an act of kindness and they become a hero. I guess that really tells us the state that our society is in. So what do we do in terms of highlighting more? And there's a lot of good going on out there.
Right. You see, you brought up something very important in that empathy, helping others, showing kindness, and other virtues like courage and bravery and honesty. That is something that shouldn't just pop up every now and again. It should be part of our everyday lifestyle. And the media has a very important role. Sometimes the media goes after sensational stories. Somebody is corrupt, a politician is caught in some form of corruption, a man commits a murder, high-profile case, and it's splashed across the television and the front page. It makes headlines. And maybe it's competition for newspaper sales or for the market, audience market, but it tells something about our society. It tells something that we are living in a superficial time. We are dealing with pseudo-citizens. We are dealing with people who are hollow when we go after this cheap publicity. I want to tell the men out there that when Jesus Christ did his healing and his miracles, and Professor, you and your listeners would know, he never went about boasting. He did it quietly, without any sort of desire or hope for publicity. And this is how I want to see men in Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean, that they would perform acts of kindness. They would do goodness and not expect something in return. And I think this is what I've been trying to build in International Men's Day.
Wonderful. And I think that is, I want to endorse that because, sensationalism sells, I guess. And that is why the media highlights that. But there's so much good in the society. There's so many good people that don't get recognized. And it's not that you do something to be recognized, but when you recognize good, it inspires others, it encourages others, it motivates others, and it gives some people hope that there are good people in the world, and and that's what we want. That's what we want to do. So
we do.
Go ahead.
Because let me tell you, they have men out there who are visiting orphanages, they are visiting the hospice, they are donating pints of blood, they are helping out in NGOs, and they are doing this selfless work. They're doing it without any sort of monetary compensation, but we never see them on the front pages. We never hear about them.
Yeah.
We wouldn't hear about them on social media. We don't know their pictures or their faces. So, what you're saying is so true, and what we need is more men who are, disciplined, and have that righteousness in them.
Wonderful. That's a good note to end on, folks. We are about to wrap up, and just want to say thank you so much to Dr. Jerome Tiloksing for being our guest today. I'm sorry we weren't able to take your calls, gentlemen, but we'll get this sorted out for another time. Dr. Tiloksing, thank you so much. I just want to give you maybe 30 seconds, a minute, to just give one final word, maybe speak to the men, speak to the nation, something.
Right. Professor, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. You're doing a great job. You are one of the not invisible men, but yet very visible, And I just want to remind the nation about the need for good leaders in our society. And everybody, all our men and boys, they are role models. You do not need a badge or a certificate to say that you are a good role model. You are a leader. You don't need anybody to anoint you. You are a leader and you're a positive role model. The Bible talks about that we are the temple of God, and we need to remember that we are all God's temple, and we need to respect ourselves, we need to respect others, and we need to remember that God's Spirit lives in all of us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jerome Tiloksing. God bless you.
Bless you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Too far. I've got good news.
Well, this is where I wrap it up for today, saying thank you so much for allowing me to be in a company for the last almost an hour, talking with Dr. Jerome Tiloksing. Remember, he's a guy who started International Men's Day, and he's a Trinidadian, started right here in Tintin, and it's celebrated every year on November 19th. And so if you didn't know that before, you know it now. And we thank God for him, for guesting with us today, and for all that he's doing, and for all the other men's group that are really trying to assist, help uplift men, motivate men, inspire men, give men courage, teach men what it is to be a man. And that's what we try to do on this program.